All right, Curly, we got Super Bowl Sunday this weekend. This podcast will probably go out on Friday. Yeah, go Chiefs. You a Chiefs fan?
Well, I live in St. Louis, and everybody here
Okay.
cheers for the Chiefs, so yeah.
I have absolutely no affiliation to any football team. I haven't watched the NFL. I used to, when I was younger, I used to watch it a lot more because I actually played football in middle school. So obviously when I was younger, I watched it a lot more than I do now. But I only watch the Super Bowl. That's the extent of my football knowledge. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't care at all. Let's be clear.
Well, you don't have you don't wear the jersey or
no. I wear Crosby Advisory gear pretty much every day. So yeah.
These shirts are the best. So this year, I sent you a chart of since I think it was going back to 2000, the cost of a 30-second Super Bowl ad has gone up like clockwork. This year, It cost $7 million for a 30-second ad. So we wanted to get your just general thoughts. Do you think that's actually worth it? Do you think that these brands spending that much money on an ad for 30 seconds, do you think that actually gives you a good ROI?
So I think a lot of it depends on the size of the brand. And I also think a lot of it depends how you measure, how does Doritos measure success, right? Is it number of viewers? Is it, because obviously that number is going to be huge. Is it, how many bags they sell from a certain period of time following the ad? I think, it's for smaller brands. It's definitely not going to be something you're going to want to invest in.
So you're saying we shouldn't get a $7 million loan to buy a Super Bowl ad?
I mean, no, we should not. But yeah, I think, think about that $7 million too, right? That's just the 30-second spot. Think about the team that has to create that commercial. You're probably spending another almost $1 million on that.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Because I mean, the production value on a lot of those ads is insane, especially the car companies, they'll do crazy stuff. Yeah.
And if you have a celebrity in the ad too, again, you're just paying. It's outrageous the amount of money that goes into these things. So yeah, it's definitely not something that I'm sure brands take lightly. However, I think Doritos, Pepsi, Budweiser, these Mountain Dew we were talking about earlier today, huge brands. They have enormous budgets, and it's almost like they have no choice but to do a Super Bowl commercial, right? I mean,
at this point, yeah. If Doritos didn't do it, it would be weird.
It would be so weird, and everyone would be talking about where was that commercial, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, just the fun of after the fact talking about the commercials, and I think that goes a longer way around brand placement, brand loyalty than buying a bag of Doritos at the store next time you go, right? I think a lot of it has become, you have to do it, so make it really memorable, and perhaps it will help to gain some trust or some following from your fans.
Yeah, we talked about that before we started recording, where you're basically not, Super Bowl ads are not selling a product, and a really good example I think is Mountain Dew, because if you think about, they're super extreme, super sporty, the commercials. But it's who's the key demographic for people that drink Mountain Dew? It's gonna be a younger audience that might be somewhat active, but it's I feel if you're an adult and drink Mountain Dew, you're not necessarily you're not jumping off cliffs or whatever, doing super extreme stunts or whatever. And then I guess it's the same with Red Bull too. Maybe not with the Super Bowl, but they're known for doing all these crazy stunts. But that's not necessarily their key demographic. But you're selling the brand of
Yes.
The youthfulness, the excitement, what if that's the stunts or whatever. That you're kind of selling the brand and not actually the product.
Yeah, and a lot of these businesses that advertise on TV in general, but also, the Super Bowl, since that's what we're talking about. But these brands, they rely on people making a decision in a store, standing in front of, 50 different bags of chips or kinds of pop or kinds of beer or whatever, right? And all the time, they're trying to influence you, whether it's an ad or a whatever, right? And wherever you're at, you're getting some of that through you don't even know what's happening. So I think they do rely on these kinds of, like you're describing. They're just trying to make you think Mountain Dew is cool. And next time I'm in the store and I'm picking between Pepsi and Mountain Dew, well,
it's subliminal.
Mountain Dew's cool. So I'm going to, yeah, we should get that. We haven't had that in a while. Or I love that place, right? So I do think a lot of the brands that spend tons on this kind of advertising, it's because that's the way that their buyers make decisions.
I think another really funny example, not necessarily for the football or for the Super Bowl, but for the NFL in general, is Gillette razors. If you think about like what they're actually selling, like there's like the margins on these razors are insane. Like if you
Yeah.
buy Gillette razors, like you realize how expensive they are, and they're just a little tiny sheets of metal.
Yeah.
All of the budget goes to actually marketing the product as like the best a man can get. Like
Yeah.
it's all in the marketing. Like it's all of this money that they're spending. Like because you can't improve on a razor that much. Like how much better
Right.
can a razor get? It's little tiny sheets of metal on a stick. Like that's
Yeah.
all it is. But you're selling that. Like you see these massive, huge marketing campaigns. I mean, they own the stadium, or they own the naming rights to the stadium of probably the most popular football team outside of maybe the Dallas Cowboys, which is the New England Patriots Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
I think there's still Gillette Stadium, but yeah, just so much money goes into the actual marketing and not necessarily like the product. Like that is the business
Yes.
model. Is just market the hell out of it.
Totally. Totally. It's all influence. You're trying to win people's mind share. They talk about it after. They share it after. We talked a little bit earlier today, Derek, about it. These ads live on now, right? Like before, it was on during the Super Bowl and that was kind of it. Maybe it played again after, but if you missed it, you missed it. Now it's like you missed it, you just go on link or YouTube and find it and it's there and there's a whole bunch of people talking about it and it will inevitably be on any social media platform that you're on the next day, the next few days, and especially if it's a good one, you're getting all this word of mouth. It's continuing for have people advertising for you just by them saying, "Did you see that one? Did you see that one? I like that one." So you're 7 million plus production and paying celebrities.
Yeah, right.
Your 7 million, it's not just that 30 seconds anymore. So, while it has grown substantially from 2000, when it was around 2 million to now, I do think it lives on a bit more now. So, maybe it is something that people can look at a little bit differently from a ROI point of view.
I think a really big deal. Maybe not so much anymore. I think now you're right. It's more focused on the like social media impressions the following week. But back before social media was so permeated through every aspect of our daily lives, it used to be that like Monday morning water cooler talk.
Yeah.
Like that's what they were going
Yep.
for. It's like if you could get your ad to be like mentioned, oh, did you see the Doritos commercial? That one was really funny. Or
Yeah.
and then they used to do like the day before the Super Bowl on Saturday, they used to do like top 100 best Super Bowl commercials, and they would just go through old
Yes.
ads. Yeah, do you remember? I don't think they do that anymore, but I also don't have cable, so I wouldn't know anyway.
Same.
Yeah, but so I feel like that is a shift. Is the emphasis on trying to get social media impressions, trying to get people
Yeah.
to talk about it. I think a really good example of that is the funny enough the FTX ad with Larry David. Like that was a really big one that blew up on Twitter. Like everybody was talking about. But I also get a lot of like crypto stuff on my Twitter algorithm, so it might just be me.
It knows you pretty well.
Yeah, right. So what are your thoughts on just the effectiveness of TV versus doing targeted Facebook, Google ads? Because you look at like Facebook and Google, their whole business model is built around they know everything about you to such a granular detail, and advertisers basically pay to put their ads in front of the right people. And Google says, hey, we know the right people to put these ads in front of.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, now that we're talking about it, I don't know about you, but I don't get a lot of targeted Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever ads for things like food, like Doritos, Pepsi, T-Mobile, Budweiser, right? Like the big name commercials that we're kind of talking about. So it seems like they don't do a lot of that individual advertising, or at least if they do, they're not targeting me, which
It's not as effective, maybe.
Yeah, like so for whatever reason, perhaps people kind of just blow by those in their feed. But for something like TV, where it's a pretty captive, you're sitting there, definitely something like the Super Bowl where it's known for the commercials, for the halftime show. And even if they all suck, we all sit there and watch them, right? And we all say like, oh, that one wasn't even good. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah, right.
Why? Right? Like it's just become such a habit that we do it. So I do think that, while I think that really, in all reality, for the rest of the year, social media and targeted, the ability to send an email that's very custom to someone, or, social media, an article, a blog, whatever it is, I think building relationships with people one-on-one and doing that the best you can without maybe knowing your direct audience, it's going to be more effective in the long run for most brands, right? I mean, I have to imagine that Doritos and Pepsi, these people who have huge budgets, well, they justify these kinds of spends because they have it.
It's just a tax write-off.
It's just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, for companies that are much more, whether they're smaller or just truly don't see, like they can't justify spending that kind of money, I think that there's way better tactics that exist today through social media ads, or, I mean, the ability to get something to go viral, while that is a bit of an art, right? Not necessarily a science. We talk to our clients a lot about that. Using the right keywords, using the right hashtags, the right music in the background, the right images, the right time of day that you post something. I mean, it's all trial and error, but you can get something to go viral if you get the message right and you really know your audience. So I do think that social media is definitely a way that you can, participate in the Super Bowl at a much, much lower cost, right? Especially being able to ride the coattails, right? There's going to be a lot of hashtags. There's going to be a lot of conversation and chatter about commercials and about the Super Bowl itself, or the big game. By the way, I feel like we're supposed to call it the big game. Is that a thing? Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But anyway, I do think there's a lot of opportunity for people to use the best practices that exist today, which is really the benefit of some of these like newer marketing tactics.
So I want to touch on 2 points that you made. One, the captive audience. I thought that was a really good point, because you're getting like people who host Super Bowl parties, and
Yes.
like you're getting, let's say 50 to 80% of the people at the house that have not watched a football game. They only watch
Yeah.
a Super Bowl. I would be included in that group. And then
Same.
you don't really have stake in who wins or who loses. You're just there to like hang out with friends.
Yeah.
And then the funny Super Bowl commercials are just part of it. And then two, also, so I think that there hasn't been a Super Bowl ad that caused a greater ROI than some of these like really effective YouTube ads. And I think a really good example of that, I don't know if you got these, was Purple mattresses. When they first started, before anyone had heard of them, they did that campaign with the eggs. I don't know if you remember this.
Yep.
And that was such an effective ad. I don't know like what they do in sales, but now it's like a widely recognized brand just because of like they did such a good job creating one ad. And now they're like, I mean, most people know who they are, and they started on the internet. So I think that's, and then like you think about all this money. I would venture a guess that they spent, let's say an average Super Bowl ad costs like $10 million once you factor in endorsements or whatever.
Yep.
I guarantee you they did not spend $10 million on that ad, and the ROI that they got on that was insane.
Yeah.
So those are just the two things I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, it's almost like for me with the Super Bowl commercials, like when we talk about memorable ones, I know you have some favorites, but for me, the memorable ones are the ones that are weird. Like, it's like, what even is that? Like, GoDaddy, which always has like completely like inappropriate ads. But when they first came out, it was like, what even is this? We don't even know what they're marketing. Like that was their whole gimmick, right? And last year with like some of the crypto ones and people that, there's just a QR code like floating across the screen and it like crashed the internet. Like it's those kinds of things that, you sometimes don't remember the big brand ones, but you always remember these sort of weird ones.
Right. It kind of like shocks the system, like breaks the mold, so it's like after so many ads, you're kind of like numb to it. And then there's the one that's like, that's kind of weird. It makes you like, Coinbase, that was Coinbase with the QR code that crashed the website. Don't use Coinbase. Coinbase sucks. But that so my last thing I want to talk about was the chance for like younger companies, or like not so much younger companies, but basically companies on the verge of becoming household names. They can use Super Bowl ads to basically buy legitimacy. And then so some examples that I want to talk about were in the early 2000s, like during like the .com bubble. A famous example is like Pets.com. They basically sold pet supplies via the internet, and they're kind of like shorthand for a company that went bankrupt during the .com bubble. And there's a bunch of other ones. And then last year, a lot of crypto companies that, FTX was one that, blew up to the tune of like many, many billions of dollars. But basically their whole strategy, FTX was a scam. Their whole strategy was basically buying legitimacy. And part of that was getting Larry David on a Super Bowl ad. And it's an effective strategy. Crypto.com, they got Matt Damon, Fortune favors the brave. And there's a bunch of other examples.
Yeah, if you can afford it, if you can swing it, definitely you're going to get PR from it. Like, people will see it. It's going to be, the Super Bowl is watched by millions of people around the world, right? So you're definitely going to get recognition. Whether or not it's the most effective, probably depends on the things we've talked about. What are you measuring and all that. But yeah, you're right. If you can swing it, you're definitely going to be like a legitimized name that people are going to potentially talk about in the days after. And we've talked about the FTX thing a lot on our podcasts and such, but that was essentially a marketing campaign that was being run, right? The whole thing was just a complete scam. So it was all about just trying to convince people that they were legit, and the Super Bowl was part of that. And there was a whole bunch of other pretty large tactics that were just big dollar spends, right? So
and it worked. It
worked.
Even people in the crypto ecosystem, they would recognize FTX as like the gold standard. They had like regulatory legitimacy. They had brand legitimacy by tying themselves to endorsements, politicians.
So I guess it's buyer beware, right? Like, don't forget that, the Super Bowl is just something that you can buy. Anybody can buy an ad if they can afford it. And that doesn't mean that, it's still just an ad. So, don't forget that as you're sitting there watching it.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping Bernie Madoff from buying a Super Bowl ad. I don't think that he did, but it would have been really funny if he did, just in the context of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
That was I think I wanted to keep this one pretty short. So did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nope. Just that if we start doing Super Bowl ads, you'll know that we've made it. That's all.
Yeah, good. All right. So as always, thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. If you liked it, like, share, subscribe. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube at Crosby Advisory. Go to marketingcag.com if you need help marketing your small business. Carly, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just, fun fact. So we talked about the teams earlier. So the Eagles, the coach of the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, actually went to college with Nate and me and my sister. So he went to Mount Union and played football. I think he probably played with Nate at some point. There's a bit of an age gap, but I think Nate may have been a senior when he was maybe like a freshman or sophomore. So yeah, we actually all know Nick Sirianni. So he took a different path. He took a different path than some of us. No
right or wrongs, but just different.
No, exactly. So we do support the Eagles here as our Mount Union love.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so, but I'd be remiss if I'm leaning into my conspiracy mind, I'm thinking that the NFL wants Patrick Mahomes to win because Tom Brady retired and they need a new star. That's my 2 cents on the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Derek.